Hello, I am Anawiltos and welcome to another episode of Science Fiction Power Scaling. Now, I've been away for a while, and to be honest, I am quite sick today, and that's the reason I've been away for a while. But anyway, let's get right into the point of this video. Today, I am going to be analyzing, or at least making a comparison on what I would call technology tiering in Star Trek, specifically the TNG era, for some major powers during that time period in the Star Trek universe. So that's talking about the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager time period. So, of course, the bottom of the barrel for this would be the Kazon. The Kazon notably do not have transporters, they do not have the ability to synthesize water, they don't have replicators, so the Kazon generally are considered very bottom tier. Technologically, they're very inferior. Now, of course, what makes it even worse for them is the fact that most of their technology isn't even original to them. They stole it from the Trabe. So the Kazon really go at the bottom of the list here. So now I'm going to talk about some slightly substandard technology below the level of the Federation. We've got the Cardassians. Now, it's very important to remember that the Cardassians aren't inferior in every way to the Federation technologically. There are some very good strong points. For example, the defense system at Chintaka was very good, very effective, or the Dreadnought missile was also very powerful, and a lot of the stuff that the Obsidian Order does is very technologically advanced, if I do say so myself. It's just that in general we get the impression throughout the later parts of the Next Generation, as well as a lot of Deep Space Nine, that the Cardassians, especially militarily speaking, are slightly technologically inferior to the other major powers such as the Klingons, the Federation, and the Romulans. But nevertheless, I wouldn't put them too far down because they can still hold their own against those. Now, of course, this lack of technological advantage over their rivals, of course, obviously led them to ally the more technologically advanced Dominion. Or at least that's one of the reasons that it makes sense for the Cardassians to ally the Dominion. But anyway, another substandard here, the Klingons. And I think this one makes sense because the Klingons, as we see them in the Next Generation and in Deep Space Nine, don't really have the same drive for research that the Federation or the Romulan Empire have. They're more interested in fighting and in honor and in doing other things. But that being said, let's not downplay the Klingons too much, because it is strongly implied that the Klingons do have multiple facets in their society. However, technologically speaking, especially in the medical field, the Klingons really are at a disadvantage to, well, if we're talking the medical field, practically everyone, except for probably the Kazon, because of their attitude toward the disabled. And another substandard here, the Bajorans. I put the Bajorans above the Kazon. The reason being is that the Bajorans do have access to a lot of the technology that the Cardassians have, and the reason that the Bajoran fleet isn't very powerful is in Deep Space Nine is because it's actually built from scratch, less than 10 years old, even at the end of Deep Space Nine. In addition to that, the Bajorans were under occupation and didn't really have the infrastructure to build a good fleet. So that's why they aren't very powerful. However, technologically speaking, they should at least be on the same level as the Cardassians, especially after the occupation. Now, during the occupation, as well as the Bajoran refugees and before the occupation, the Bajorans would have been farther down, maybe closer to the Kazon, but after the end of the occupation, they got a lot of Cardassian equipment. They also had a lot of assistance from the Federation, so I wouldn't put them on the same level as the Federation or the Romulans, but I definitely put them on that just below level with the Cardassians and the Klingons. I'm not saying that they are all technologically equal, because obviously the Klingons have their advantages in certain points, and the Cardassians have their advantages. In fact, in this grouping that I've made, the Bajorans are probably the lowest, but they're definitely above the Kazon. So anyway, the standard level, the gold standard here that we're basing our comparison off of is the Federation, of course. And it is, I think, outright stated that the Ferengi are at equal level to the Federation. It's just that their technology is different and has different strengths to that of the Federation. So the Ferengi are definitely on that level, in fact, outright stated to be on that level. Another group that I'd put on that level is the Romulans. The Romulans, of course, are the big rival to the Federation in the Next Generation, and they always try to outplay each other in their technological advancements. Now, of course, that being said, the Romulans do have some significant technology showings throughout the series, but of course the Federation catches up to them by advancing in different technologies. For example, when the Prometheus was built with a multi-vectored assault and defeated some Romulan ships, that really shows what I'm talking about. Now, above them, I'd say there are some cultures that are advanced. You've got the Dominion. The Dominion has long-range transporters. I don't think they can beam stuff in long range very much, but they can definitely beam people out long range. In addition to that, they have some very highly advanced genetic engineering with creating the disease, the quickening, in addition to highly genetically engineering the Vorta as well as the Jem'Hadar. And overall, they also have very strong weapons as well. So I put them on a level above the Federation. And I think if you watch the episode, the Jem'Hadar, that makes sense that they'd be above them a little bit. Now, that being said, eventually the Dominion did run it into the fact that they didn't really have the ability to make up for in numbers because Cisco was blocking the wormhole. So that's a problem for them. Anyway, the Sona are... Oh, by the way, back on the Dominion, they also managed to disguise the surface of their planet while it was being bombarded by enemies, so that the enemy thought that they were there when in reality they weren't. And they did a whole bunch of other technologically advanced stuff throughout Deep Space Nine, so they're definitely above the Federation, but not too far ahead. The Sona as well are a little bit above the Federation. Now, of course, the Sona themselves are less powerful than the Federation, and the main reason I'd say this is probably because of small numbers. But the Sona, with their harnessing of a metaphasic radiation, which is something that the Federation wasn't able to do, the Sona also had mass synthesized Ketracel White for the Dominion during the Dominion War, which is something the Federation wasn't able to do either. So they're above the Federation, just not a lot above. And also, let's not forget the isolytic subspace weapons. So the Sona are a little bit above the Federation, but not too far up. Next up, the Krenim. They appear in a couple episodes of Voyager. I like to include them because I really like the Krenim. I think they definitely deserve a lot of credit. They fired torpedoes that time travel in order to get past shields, which is pretty cool and I'd say pretty advanced. And there's also the time ship that the Krenim made that managed to destroy civilizations out of the timeline itself, past, present, future. And also everybody who's on board is practically immortal. So that's pretty advanced and definitely above what we see the Federation do. Now, of course, that being said, I'm not including future Federation time cops and stuff like that. That's not something I'm going to include for this. Maybe people are upset when I said time cops. So now let's talk about some highly advanced cultures. We've got the Voth, who are able to transport the entirety of an Intrepid-class starship with personnel and all sorts of different things aboard. Transport it using a transporter inside of their spaceship. I think that alone, in addition to the fact that they can transwarp, gives them a really big technological edge that I would put them at highly advanced. Also, they have personal cloaking devices and other such things, but they didn't have a lot of showings. In fact, they were only in one episode, unless there's an Easter egg in some other episode, and that's really all we can tell, is that they're advanced, but they're not extremely advanced beyond belief, though. Species 8472 can square up against the Borg, and that itself puts them on an advanced level, especially if you consider the advanced design of their bioships, and later on their ability to disguise as humans and various other Federation species on a near genetic level. So that makes them very advanced, in my opinion. And I think that's fine, and they scale well with the Borg. And I put the Borg on two different levels here, because the portrayal of the Borg has been a bit inconsistent throughout Star Trek. In fact, as time goes on, the Borg actually get a lot weaker. So I decided to be fair, to split them into two versions. You've got the Voyager Borg, which I put on this highly advanced level, and the Next Generation Borg, which I put on a superior level. And so the Voyager Borg, also in First Contact, that's their main appearances: First Contact, Voyager, and that one episode of Enterprise. They are a bit greenish, which is how you can distinguish them from the Next Generation Borg. And it makes sense to put them on this level because they square up well against Species 8472, but they can assimilate whole civilizations. They have highly advanced technologies in a lot of different ways. They've got their transwarp network, they've got their collective and how that connects up, but technologically speaking, I do have to say that they are inferior to the Pale Borg. The reason I'm using the word pale is because if I use the word white, I'm pretty sure a lot more people would be upset. The Pale Borg from TNG, especially in the first episode they appear in, Q-Who, they are powerful. They are easily able to throw guys around. The only person, I think, in TNG that manages to deal with them hand-to-hand is Data. And they're able to resist phaser blasts at maximum. Now, of course, that being said, on rotating modulation, it's a little bit harder for them to do. But in the original episode they appeared in, one of them got shot initially on a low setting from a phaser and didn't even put shields up, didn't even need to put shields up. And then this phaser was set to maximum, he got killed, and then a new one came in fact, just a few seconds later, and he got shot with the same top setting phaser, and shields were effective. no damage. So they just adapt really quick, and they're also relentless in their pursuit, which is another thing to note. So, and they didn't have the weakness of the Queen, which, in many people's opinion, really nerfed the Borg, that the Queen was a voice to unity, instead of it actually being a full collective consciousness. You don't need a president at the top of it to organize things when it's an effective consciousness, but that didn't happen. So other honorable mentions here: the Breen. It's hard to scale the Breen because we don't see that much of them, and I'd put them at maybe the same level as the Federation and the Romulans. I know that they did have a tactical advantage against the Federation when they were first introduced, but I can't really put them on too high a level simply based on that one bit of technology alone, because after that they weren't really that far ahead of anybody else. The Vidians, they have highly advanced medical technology, but they also don't have personnel transporters. They do have organ transporters, but they don't have personnel transporters. And I don't know if they have replicators. The Hirogen, it's really hard to place them because their technology is really focused on one thing, and that's to either hunt or get better at hunting. But however, it is notable that they were able to easily use Federation technology, so they're probably close to that level. And they've also got the relays, which are a bit advanced, some might say. Although, that being said, if the Federation decided to do something like that, I don't think they'd have a problem doing it. So I put the Breen, the Vidians, and the Hirogen at maybe the level of the Federation. The Vidians might be slightly lower. The Hirogen, I don't really know, maybe slightly higher. But, well, actually lower as well, because their civilization practically collapsed, and they're nomadic. So that's my idea on what the technological ranking is for some of the major TNG era Star Trek cultures. Now, of course, you may disagree, and if you disagree and you have something to say, I would love to hear it. If there's a lot of stuff that people are telling me that really invalidates a lot that I've said in this video, then I would appreciate it if you told me, and I would even consider making a second video correcting the wrong, because that's what I like doing. I like being right, and if you're right, then of course, if you want to be right, then of course you're going to try to correct yourself when you're wrong, so that you're not wrong anymore and you're right. So anyway, I think that's enough for now. I have to edit this video now. The way I've done this is I've just recorded the audios instead of doing it for OBS with looking at the spreadsheet, because I decided maybe I want to edit the video a bit more, so I want to record the audio separately. So I guess I'll figure that out when I get to editing. Hopefully you see topical images as things happen. So anyway, thank you all for listening and watching, and I will be seeing you all next time on Awiltus over and out.